I'm Jeff Morris, president of A Cart Manufacturing Incorporated. We've been in business since 1972, and we specialize in the fabrication, manufacture of custom vending vehicles, push carts, trailers, kiosks, mobile step van kitchens, and custom vehicles. And part of our business also includes the restoration and fabrication of classic vehicles and custom vehicles that we build from the ground up. And to my right, you can see the Red Cross disaster relief vehicle. That's a mobile step van kitchen. It's equipped with a complete mobile kitchen inside, stove, steam table, sinks, everything you would need to prepare a meal. And this goes on site and responds to disasters. This is a refrigerated unit here, and then what we're concentrating on right now are a number of modular units that go into a kiosk that is going into the Merrill Lynch headquarters in New York that is replacing the one that was blown up in the World Trade Center disaster. And the thatch roof you see over here is a canopy for a Maui Wowie smoothie cart. We make carts for smoothies, fresh fruit blends, coffee, pizza, ice cream, of course hot dog carts of all sizes, shapes, and descriptions. Regarding the vehicles, behind me we have a 1940 Buick Limited. It's a Series 80, Model 81. Next to it is a 1939 Chevrolet Deluxe. And in the shop we have a new Mitsubishi, a 68 Firebird, a 1938 Buick Coupe. And outside the shop we have a 1956 Ford Town Sedan, a 1929 Seagraves fire engine. And to the right of that, the pink one is a 1958 Buick Super. Next to that, we have a red 1958 Super. And around the corner from the truck is a 1938 Buick Special four-door sedan, Model 41. We have a 38 Buick. Now this is, as I said, the beginning of the story actually. This is my first car. I've had it since 1968. I didn't buy it new, it was already 30 years old. But it had a 401 V8 engine in it, which was actually a later model V8 out of a Buick. And it had a 4-speed Muncie transmission and a Chevy rear end. And it had racing slicks, and it was being raced at Englishtown in New Jersey. Went very fast. But I drove it for a while like that, and I enjoyed it, but always wanted to restore it to original, which I did. But along the way, I acquired a few other cars in order to be able to do that. One of which is the Coupe, which is in the body shop, which I bought so that I would have the complete drivetrain, because it had the engine, transmission, rear end, everything all done on the rolling chassis. So I just lifted the body off of the Coupe, lifted the body off of this, and redid it, of course, and put the two together and made a complete car with a complete running original drivetrain. Back in June, it was in a film with Robert Wagner. They called from a movie company called Rico Films. So I showed up at 9 o'clock the next morning up in Delaware, and it was for a movie called The Calling, which is the life story of Leroy Jenkins. But Robert Wagner was starring in this, and I had to show him how to drive the car and what I had to go through. So we'd work together, and he'd be in there starting it and give me the nod, and I'd put the wires together and we'd start and run it up and down the road. Well, part of the filming included a portion where there had to be dialogue between he and the lady co-star, and it had to happen as they were backing up, but they couldn't have any outside noise from the engine. So what they had to do was push this car backward up a hill. And it was hilarious. I didn't get involved. I just stood and watched because all they wanted me to do was get in and start it when we needed to. It'll be interesting to see how much of the car is actually used in the film. But Leroy Jenkins was there and he said, hey, you want to sell the car? And I said, no, I don't think so. He said, well, it's going to be worth a lot of money because it's going to star in this film. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. A number of years later, I still had the 401 engine and was approached by someone that said, hey, I heard you had a 401 engine. I said, yeah. Do you want to sell it? And I said, no, not really. And they kept pestering me, and they called one day and said, well, would you trade it? Well, for what? A car. I said, okay, sure, I'll trade it for a car. So I traded it for a 56 Buick. And the reason they had the 56 Buick is because they had this car, and they thought that if they took the engine was not running in this car, that if they took the 56 engine, they could put it into this. Well, as you know, that's a 322, and it won't fit the 364 configuration that this car is and was equipped with. So I went ahead and bought the car back in order to get the engine back, because I never wanted to sell the engine in the first place. So in order to get the engine, I bought the car, and there it is. It's missing a carburetor, but I decided I wanted to put everything possible on this, so I found an original air conditioning unit, so put that in. And this car did not have power brakes on it originally, so I went ahead and found a power brake booster, added that, and I have the electric eye. The pink 58 was a present to my daughter when she turned 16 years old and she was able to drive. I said, Amy, I bought a car for you, ha ha ha. And I found this in Newark, Ohio. It was in good, partially restored, original condition. Had spent a lot of time in Florida, and it runs great. It has the 364, which is the same block as the 401, and automatic, runs great. When I can open her up, that's the 364, and this was the predecessor to this, of course, was the 322 nailhead, like I mentioned before, in the 56. Yeah, this is a super. The deluxe model was the limited, and it had similar side pieces, but it had hash marks with chrome, and it was about a foot longer. And each model had the name across the trunk: Roadmaster, Limited, Super, Special, or Century. There's a Century 4-door outside, which is for parts, but if you like to look at old parts cars, that's available too. Now this is a 1972 Buick Riviera. This I obtained along with the 1940. This was one of Bud Penn's cars. It needs some attention in a few different areas, but overall the body is in excellent condition, and with some cleanup and minor detail, we'll be able to have a very nice, dependable ride. This is a 1929 Seagraves fire engine that is owned by the city of Upper Arlington. It's their #1 engine, and they brought this to us a couple of years ago and said, we'd like you to do a restoration on it mechanically so that we can drive it in parades and use it on a regular basis, because it's not really dependable the way it is now, and it has a lot of mechanical problems. This is a 1956 Ford Fairlane Town Sedan, and this is being converted into a police car for Easton Town Center. They're going to be using it in their security force as a security vehicle there at the shopping center. It's fairly easy to find a convertible or a 2-door hardtop or a 2-door sedan, but 4-door cars just aren't that easy to find in good condition. I looked at several in Ohio and found this one in California, and called out there. I have some family there that was able to send a mechanic and a body man out to check it out and make sure that it was everything that it was being described as, and it was. Now this is a 38 Buick Coupe that I mentioned before, and it is the car that I acquired in order to have the drivetrain to put under my original 38, which I got in 1968. I have everything. It's 100% complete. Now it's just a matter of painting and reassembling. A nice thing about the 38 Buicks is that the fenders, front and rear, the hood from the cowl forward is all interchangeable. So the only difference really is the trunk lid and of course the body. Otherwise everything is interchangeable between coupe and sedan. The 39 was kind of an interesting story. This fella, I got a call one day and he was kind of in a panic. He said, I have a 39 Chevy that I had taken to a company to be worked on and have some metal work and floor pans and so on and this and that replaced. However, the Internal Revenue Service swooped down on them and they said that I'd better come pick up my car if I wanted it. So he had hidden it away down the street, and we went and picked it up and brought it into our shop and gave him an estimate on what it would cost to restore. And we've been working away on it, and at this point we're down to some of the final mechanics. We're replacing all the wheel cylinders and finalizing the brake work. The interior has all been redone. All the chrome has been redone. Of course, it's been painted very nicely. Starter, carburetor, new water pump, everything mechanical has been attended to. And it runs very nicely. But this is a stainless steel compartment that has a little drain in it, and this customer wanted to be able to sit in back and have a flask or a bottle on ice in the back that he could pull out and have a little party. So that's what we've done there. Now this is a 1940 Buick Limited that I acquired a few weeks ago. It's completely original, and this was originally owned by the Bedford Hotel in Bedford, Pennsylvania. And this was a limousine that they used to transport guests to and from the train station and around the property. And there's a story on this one that the limo driver or drivers would stand in front of the car, and they spent more time standing and waiting than they did driving, and they'd stand there, and if you look, there's a place on each of the front fenders where supposedly it's been worn by the rear end. And there's one on this side too. It's a little bit bigger though. And so that's the story behind that. I think that's kind of an unusual tale, and it's nice to continue the legend. This has the same straight 8 engine as the 38, but it's the larger variety. That's 110 horse, this is 140. It has a spacious back seat, and there's a nice footrest down here, which is a nice touch. And there's a under-seat heater, and of course your assist strap and handles. This is the 80 series. The larger series was a 90. It was also a limited, and it had the divider window and jump seats, so you actually had 2 additional seats. Rear vent windows are kind of fun. They open like so, and it's just a very spacious vehicle. And if you look at the car from here back, it's exactly like the 38. Same trunk, identical taillights, taillight housings. In fact, the bumper's the same, the bumperettes are a little different. I've never had these off. I don't know what's, oh, I see. And then this comes off like so. There we go. Wow, still has air in it.
I'm Jamie Fisher. Dude's my nickname.
I'm Robert Zivner. I'm a body man here at A Cart Manufacturing and Restoration.
And we'll invite you into our shop, show you some stuff that goes on. This really is not so much a restoration job, it's more or less, I guess you could call it modern day street rod. It's on a rotisserie, and we put it up on the rotisserie to have a little more access so when we sandblast everything, clean everything up, as far as like floorboards and whatnot. We can spin stuff like this and get access to it. As you can see, this car's pretty much well been cobbed up by someone else. We're kind of going back in, we're gonna cut all this out, floorboards and whatnot, re-weld everything up, get it back. Like I say, it's not going back to original, but it's trued up as much as possible, cleaned up so it looks good. We're going for more points, like for street rod, we want a cleanliness and not so much like a Conquest restoration type deal. Robert here is pretty much well doing all the welding and whatnot. We've been working with a place called Detroit Speed out of Detroit, Michigan. And we've narrowed the frame back in here to fit wider tires with it. The shocks that were originally on the outside will be mounted on the inside with a shock tower brace up in here. The frame, once we get all this cut out and welded back in, it'll be tied together. Has a subframe that comes with these cars. All that'll be tied together, so the frame will be nice and rigid. Won't be any flexing on the car. Down the road, this car's probably going to get a 502 big block in it with a 6-speed transmission. It'll all be late model fuel injected type setup. Be real nice, probably around 500-600 horsepower out of it, so we can't have any flexing and tearing it up.
Yeah, we're also widening the wheel tubs. It's like a mini tub from the Detroit Speed and Engineering. That's why I narrowed the frame. Well, we're going to put the tires on it.
Yeah, it'll be an 18-inch tall tire, like a Boyd's wheel. Be 18 inches tall, real low profile. It's going to be a 315 size tire, so they're about that wide from there to there. This is a 75 Pontiac Bonneville that we're doing for a gentleman. Most people wouldn't want to redo these cars, but this old guy, he's got an attachment to it. He's had this car since it's been brand new. This car was a tough one to do for a reason that no one makes parts for this car. So most of the parts that are on it, the hood and the fenders are original. The doors and quarters I got out of Arizona, a place called Desert Valley, and they were used quarters that they'd cut off a car, and we had them shipped here. And then Robert here drilled out all the spot welds, pulled them off in pieces, and then re-welded them up into here. As you can see, the hood was kind of beat up.
They were kind of tough to do because they'd come off a 2-door hardtop.
Yeah.
And this is a convertible car, so it took a lot of extra work and a lot of extra welding and whatnot to get them the way they need to be. The doors we bought, real solid. There's a lot of damage on the outside of them, but being that
20, 30 years old.
Yeah, being that they were rust free and we got them from Arizona, we can afford to do some work on the outside of them.
Yeah.
For the simple fact that they're nice doors.
If you look back here, get a little better idea of the quarter panels and what we dealt with. The floor pans, once we got into them, we didn't realize how bad they were. We're going to cut out some sections and re-weld some pieces in the floors. You can see where the quarters and everything were. We came inside and put them all back in here, so that way there's no seams on the outside. Everything will be nice and trued up. The gaps and everything are pretty straight. We go through and make sure all the gaps for these cars are pretty much well perfect, probably better from when they came from the factory. It's kind of a little homemade setup job, but it works really well. The dirt is unbelievably clean, which I was pretty impressed. I've done a couple paint jobs in here, and it works really well. I don't get that much dirt in here. I did the ceiling kind of like a fake downdraft type ceiling. I put the vents in up there, sealed the doors up, and then put the door in over here so we don't have to open up the big ones to come in and out. I got the 2 fans here. I got an air filtration and oil trap system set up out here, and then we have a dryer out there that cleans and dries all the air. so that way we don't have any water contamination in the paint, which is really important. I see a lot of shops who do not do that and start mixing oil with paint and stuff like that. Probably not going to last too long for you. Yeah, as you can see, we share the shop with the other manufacturing company, so we're running out of room and everything else. But this car, none of the interior was in it. A guy had done the interior, and I made some brackets for the seats and put the carpet in it, the door panels, got all the glass back in it and tracks. It was kind of a basket case, and it's getting there. I'm hoping soon to have this car out of here. Like I say, all I really did to this was I just buffed it, did a little cleanup on it, and I got to pull the motor out now and put all new gaskets in it because I got it running the other day and it's leaking. So we're gonna go through that, put all new gaskets in it, clean it up, and hopefully this will be going here in a couple weeks. This is I'm pretty sure this is a 51 Buick. He's a little upset, the owner is, about the engine and stuff. He wanted it more of a Concours restoration type thing, and the gentleman he painted all this with like a clear coat, and he wouldn't really get the points that he would want for the Buick Club and the Concours type thing that he wants. But he's going to live with it for now. Maybe down the road we'll pull it out and tone this stuff down and do it more back to original so he can get the points that he's looking for. But real nice car, real solid. This is another project that was left here when I came in, and I'm trying to get these old projects out and out of our hair. This is a 29 Seagraves fire engine, and the front of it was pretty much well off. I'm not sure who did the paint and whatnot to it. I think it was done before it came in. The engine was put in by a gentleman, I can't remember his last name, Kevin, from Lancaster, Ohio. He did a real nice job installing the motor. It runs, everything works on it. However, when they did the motor, they couldn't guarantee some of the welds would hold. And of course, the welds didn't hold, and it's leaking some antifreeze. So now the Smithsonian wants a new motor put in it. I guess you can put a straight inline Ford motor in it with the newer transmission. And I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to have us do. I won't be doing much of the engine work or whatnot on that.
You were showing me this car when it was in a pretty rough state. You probably just saw that footage. We'll cut back to that. But here it is in the finished state, and Dewey's going to tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. It's a 56 Ford we're doing for a mall here in Columbus, Ohio, Easton Mall. And they wanted something to make their mall stand out, I guess. Very nice mall. They were going to do a Mercedes truck. And then Jeff talked them into doing the 56 Ford, which I thought was a pretty neat idea. It's got the old nostalgia, Barney Fife style look to it. This car, when it came in, we got it out of California. The body on it was in pretty good shape. Other than I stripped it down to steel. It had moldings. If anyone knows anything about the old 56 Fords, it went all the way down it throughout the back that I got rid of. Welded all that up. All the chrome was sent out and redone and cleaned up. And it's got a late model 302 in it, which we built, me and a couple other people, a guy named Larry Russell and a guy named Tom Rocco that work at Jigs, come in and help me do most of the mechanical work on it. I had to make custom motor mounts for it, and to make it fit in, custom transmission mounts. We had to have a special drive shaft made for it. It's got a custom gas tank. The car is carbureted. I wanted to do a fuel injection, but they were wanting to stick with the carburation setup on it, which is probably a good idea. But it's about a 275, 300 horsepower motor, 302 small block, which is more than what they'll ever need to cruise around their mall in. But it's got a set of Sanderson headers that were specially made for it out of California. Goes back through 2.5-inch exhaust all the way back through a set of Flowmasters. It's got a real nice throaty sound to it that you'll hear once we start it up and take a ride in it. Had to make this cop car nice and fast for chasing shoplifters and whatnot. Hi, I'm Dewey. I'm here at A Cart Restoration. Saw you guys about 6 months ago. Jim came in and looked at this car here, and it's finally completed. And took us 11 months, total 534 hours on this particular restoration. This is Paul Browse, the owner of the car, and let him tell you how he found the car here.
Sort of a goofy way to end up owning a car like this, but I saw an advertisement about getting a free road atlas at Marty Pontiac there on Morris Road, and I needed a new road atlas, so I walked in, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, sitting in the showroom in February with snow and ice on the ground, sat this convertible with the top down. I walked by it, went back, got the road atlas, looked at this car and sat down and bought it. And I've had it since '83. It was a show car for Marty Pontiac, or Herman Marty. It was his personal car. And it sat in the back, and he only used it for shows and I guess floats and things like this to trailer things around the city and Franklin County. So this was now in 1983, it's a 75, it had 5,600 miles on it. So in reality, it was a new car. When I brought it in, we had no idea really how bad it was till the carpet was ripped up and there was no floor in the back behind the driver. And if anybody had been back there and it pressed down, they would have gone down to the highway, and I could have had a real problem, whatever, with that. So he had a real job to do, and it's now, as I say, tight, and it looks really great. And he's got some other parts coming in.
Okay, this right here is one of the original doors off the car. As you can see, a few years back, probably about 10 years ago, another body shop had restored this car. And one of the problems that they did, everything was refilled with Bondo. And you can see that there's nothing really left of the door. There was nothing left to repair. They were pretty bad. The quarters were the same way, actually, on both sides, from here down, there was nothing left. And the wheel skirts were not on it. We actually fabricated and made brackets for the wheel skirts to fit back up in there and got them on.
There we go. Okay, you want to hang on? There you go. Okay.
Okay.
I have a 69 convertible also, and it's red, and it's in worse condition than this one, but it gets me where I want to go. And the air conditioning works, the heater works, tires are good, brakes work, so what else do you need? But in this car, I wanted more than that, and so we got it back to where it's really, I feel, like a showpiece.
The interior in the car is pretty much original other than the carpet. I sent some samples out and got some carpet along the collar of the old. I'm still waiting on the pieces for the bottoms of the doors here that'll be new. And a couple new plastic lights, which, believe it or not, they still do make performance shears in Pennsylvania's where I got those out of. I know it took about 4 months longer than what we had originally planned, but like I say, we're all happy with it. Now, Mr. Browse is happy with it, and that's the main thing. So I think total together, it was close to $30,000 to redo this car, parts and labor and everything. So for some of the people out there that are wanting to get into restoration, the $5,000 or $6,000 restoration sometimes isn't the way to go, because you pay for what you get. So, and then some other people would look and think that $30,000 is cheap compared to some of the Rolls Royces, or we have an old Cadillac coming in. It's a 1940, and it's about triple that. So we're excited about that one. But anyways, that's about all for this car. Not sure what else we could let you see on it or explain to you. So thanks for coming in, and appreciate it.